This is the one where we're talking about geodatabases. I'm going to re-demonstrate connecting to the class geodatabase and talk a little bit about geodatabases. Probably about 10 or 15 minutes. I think I can cover most of that in that time period. Why don't we go ahead and get started here. Ooh. Yes, I'm playing around a little bit. Got a little quadcopter there. All right, enough silliness. I'm going to share the screen here. I'm going to share this screen. All right, present to everyone. So now you should be able to see my desktop. And let me just minimize this. Hello, hello, hello. So is this still broadcasting? I hope so. I got cut off there for a second. Maybe my internet hiccuped or something because I was signed into another account. It looks like it's still broadcasting. So let's try this again. All right, so we're connected now, and I'm going to open up our catalog. So here's our catalog, and then under our catalog you have a lot of options. Yours may not have as many as these. We're going to go to database connections here, and then say add a new database connection. And we're going to add the database that is the IP address for the course database, and the username is the default username Postgres. Password is capital G EOG 5051, and choose the GIS database when that becomes available. GIS. Okay. So say OK at this point. And you can go ahead and rename this this database. I'm going to call it Web Mapping. So we'll click into it, and we should be able to see the data that I've already loaded into the database. I've got the cemeteries and the counties, the dams, the evacuation routes, and the watersheds. Seems to be working great. In class today, it wasn't working, and all I did was go back and reboot the machine, and it worked great. I don't know why everything doesn't come up at every reboot the way it should, but sometimes it has an issue. So if you're in a position where it reboots, where you can't access the database from on campus, just let me know. So yeah, this is a PostGIS database, and as we explained in class the first time, I know that got cut off. A geodatabase is basically a database that allows spatial information to be stored in it at a minimum. And then most geodatabases actually have the ability to do some GIS functions right inside of them. And they utilize a language called SQL. SQL stands for Structured Query Language. And although the structured query language syntax changes slightly from database to database, for the most part, it's very similar. And so I demonstrated the use of SQL a little bit in the second part of this lecture, in part 2, the one that did get recorded. So I'm not going to demonstrate that here. What I'm going to demonstrate now is connecting to the database, which is what I just did, and then putting some data in the database. So at this point, we're just going to right-click on Web Mapping and say Import. And we're going to say Import Feature Class. Actually, before that, I do that, I wanted to first convert my data that I'm going to upload into into latitude, longitude. So I've got some Mississippi data right here that I'm going to put into the database. And I've got this database called, let's just use this one right here. It's called Coastal Reserves. I'm going to put Coastal Reserves into the geodatabase. So the first thing I want to do is change the projection. Okay. So actually, I'm trying to open up, you can get any data you want. Right now, it's opening up Arc Toolbox. I'm not sure why it's taking a few seconds here, but I'm just going to go ahead and dismiss this. Okay, Arc Toolbox is open. Really quickly, I'm going to check and see if there's a better layer. Current oyster reefs, transportation routes, oceanography. Okay, well, maybe oyster reefs would be a little bit bigger. I'm just going to do national parks. I just don't want to do a huge data set so that it's not taking a long time to update. So I'm going to do this national parks data. I'm going to project it first to latitude, longitude. So I simply go into data management and into project, projection transformations project. And then I drag the Mississippi National Parks data into the window here. So Mississippi National Parks, these are obviously just coastal national parks. Vicksburg is also a park that should be in this data. All right, for the output coordinate system, I'm going to choose, it's not in the list of favorites here. I'm going to go down to projected. I'm going to go to world, or sorry, I want to do latitude, longitude. Geographic coordinate system, I want to go to world and WGS84. The reason that I'm doing this is that Leaflet expects the data, any GeoJSON data to be in this coordinate system. I almost said projection, and this, in fact, some people will call this a projection, but technically, latitude and longitude isn't a projection if it's just in latitude and longitude. It's a coordinate system, but not a projection. Projection is when we put it in meters or some other linear unit, feet. All right, so that's all good. And it's going to call this MS. It's going to call this MS National Park Reject. That's fine. So I'm going to say OK, and it's going to process through. Notice that it's processing through down here. And it looks like it's completed. Let's see where it put it. I thought I was going to put it right in the same directory. Geoprocessing, results. Let's see where it put it. Oh, it's still running. Never mind. I thought I was done. All right, well, while it's running, I'll go ahead and mention that PostGIS has the ability to do lots of different spatial operations. You can do spatial joins. You can do spatial intersects, overlays, all that sort of thing. All right, I keep getting cut off here, but I'm back now. I'm going to have it share my screen again and share, present to everyone. Okay, so I'm going to bring back our catalog again, and it's done projecting. So now I'm going to import this into the geodatabase. So I say import feature class signal, and I navigate to the location where I saved it, which is right here. And I'm going to call this parks. I'm going to call it coastal parks. And I'm going to go ahead and import it. One thing that I mentioned when I did this the first time, so I'll go ahead and mention it again, is that if we were running ArcSDE, we could specify whether we wanted to use Postgres geometries or whether we wanted to use geometries, ArcSDE geometries, ARC geometries. Here, I'm not running ArcSDE on our machine, so we don't need to specify anything. It's always going to be using PostGIS geometries. So I'm going to click OK, and it's going to import this data into the GeoDatabase. It might take a little bit longer than it did in class because now it's sending this data all the way from my home. I'm on the intranet. I am on a VPN, so it thinks I'm at school, but I'm not. So it's still sending it all the way up to campus. So it might take a few minutes longer than it would usually take. So let's see if we can get it to work. All right, looks like it processed. Let's go ahead and take a look. So now when I do take a look here, it's going to be coming again from the internet. I mean, from campus. Looks pretty good. It processed just fine. So at this point, we could do anything else that we demonstrated in any of the other part 2 of this lecture, or in the lecture 2, the Thursday lecture. So we could now display this on a web map because it's loaded into the GeoDatabase, and we could use the service that I referenced in order to get to that data. These are the tables. And this is the table, and these are the fields. Okay, so you could use name and name 2 as fields, and then get that data to show up in the web map. All right, if anybody has any questions, let me know. And at this point, I'll go ahead and end this demonstration.